Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I asked you guys on my Instagram what type of romance recommendation videos you guys wanted to see from me, and one of the most common ones that I got was fantasy romance or fantasy romances with spice. I'm going to be recommending a bunch of adult fantasy romances that all have spice and steam. Some of them are more steamy than others, but they all got a little something something. So let's just get into it. The very first thing I'm gonna recommend is an author, and that is Grace Draven. I think that if you are looking for adult fantasy romances, she is the first person that you should go to. If you haven't read a Grace Draven book, you are 100% missing out. Her fantasy romances, in my opinion, are the best. It is what she's known for. It's what she's good at. So I have 3 books of hers that I'm gonna be recommending. My absolute favorite one is Radiance. I talk about this book all the time. It's one of my ultimate favorite romance books. It is a friends to lovers arranged marriage romance between 2 spare royals. So they are basically not important enough where their marriage is gonna make a huge difference in their kingdoms, but since they are royalty, they can't just marry anybody. So their kingdoms decide to marry them off to each other in a political alliance because they come from 2 kingdoms who were previously warring. So the marriage between the 2 of them is supposed to sort of bridge the gap between these 2 rival kingdoms. It also is kind of like a monster romance because the kingdom that the guy comes from, they're not humans. They are a species called the Kai, and they all have like gray skin and claws and sharp teeth, and they're nocturnal. What is just like the best thing about this book is that the 2 characters find each other so unattractive. She thinks that his species is scary and ugly, and she's kind of like terrified of how they look, and he thinks that humans are ugly and disgusting. So at the very start of their relationship, when they get married, there is no physical attraction. They think that the other is just so repulsive, but they form a really great friendship. They bond and really connect with each other. Through the course of the book, that friendship ends up blooming an attraction, and they end up falling in love with each other. It's just so beautiful to see because I really love romances that are built on a deeper connection and not just a physical one, and their connection is just so beautiful to watch. And then it's all set in this really interesting fantasy setting as well. So I just love this book and I recommend it to everybody. But another Grace Draven book that I really love is Phoenix Unbound. This one is an enemies to lovers romance set in a very different type of fantasy world from Radiance. So this one is much more a fantasy world inspired by like ancient Rome and gladiators. The main character is a witch, and so in this world there is a sacrifice every year where all of the towns have to send one of their women to be burned at the stake in this like ritualistic sacrifice. And the main character is a witch, but nobody knows that she's a witch. She, for the past couple of years, has been impersonating the person from her village that is going to be sacrificed because she uses her powers to not die during the ritual. So she keeps doing this over and over every year so that her town doesn't have to sacrifice anybody. Her love interest is a gladiator who is basically enslaved by the ruler of this world to compete in all of these fights. And so on the day of the ritual this year, he realizes that this girl, the main character, is a witch and she's using magic to get out of the sacrifice. And he uses that to his benefit and he kidnaps her so that she can help him escape. They end up having to travel all across the world to get him back to his hometown to reunite with his family and claim his birthright. And so it's very enemies to lovers, obviously, because he kidnapped her and she is trying to escape from him, but they hit a lot of roadblocks on their journey. And I really, really love the magic elements in this world. So then there is a companion book to this called Dragon Unleashed, which follows this guy who is from this ancient species of dragons, and they're basically like human dragon shapeshifters. And he gets very badly injured, and the main character is a magical healer, and so she finds him on the brink of death and heals him back to life. So the whole book is kind of like that trope of where one character is taking care of the other character who's sick or injured, and it's so cute. So those are my Grace Draven recommendations. Highly recommend, honestly, any of her books, but those are some of my favorites. The next book that I love so much is The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. So this one is about a girl who, her and her sisters have been training their whole lives for this one mission where one of them is going to be married off to the rival king in a political alliance, but actually she's being sent there to murder him. In this world, all of the trade that goes on has to go through this one bridge that is being controlled by the king. And so everyone kind of wants access to this bridge. It is super important in the politics and economics of the world. So the rival, can't remember if he's a king, but the main character's father, he wants to send her to marry the king and kill him so that they can get control of this bridge. So the whole book is her going into this rival kingdom and marrying the king, all in an attempt to get close to him and murder him. But while she's there, she realizes that she has very much been lied to by her father about the nature of this king. He has always told her that this king is ruthless and evil, and when she gets there and actually meets him and marries him, she realizes that that's not true and he's a really great person, and she starts to fall in love with him, and she's very torn about what to do. And this book was just so good. I really loved all of the fantasy elements of this because I feel like the setting of it, I just pictured like a jungle waterfall type of setting, which is super different from a lot of the other fantasy romances that I have read. So I highly recommend that one. The next one is Faye's Captive by Lily Archer. So this is a book where the main character is a student in college, and one day she is attacked and then wakes up in this dungeon and has no idea where she is, but she is surrounded by all these really crazy, freaky creatures. And it turns out that she is a changeling, and she has been abducted back into the Fae realm. And so she is now enslaved by this lord in the Fae realm. One day when she is working and serving dinner at this banquet of the lords, the Winter Fae king sees her and immediately realizes that she is his mate. So this book plays on the Fae mate bond. When the mate bond is like triggered, he immediately becomes like very protective of her and like needs to save her. So he helps her escape her enslavement, and he takes her on a journey back to his home kingdom of the Winter realm. But during that journey, a lot of things are hunting them down. A very common theme in a lot of these fantasy romances is a traveling aspect. I really love when characters have to travel together and like camp out on the road or like bathe in a river. I just love that. I eat it up every time, and this has a lot of those aspects. And this world was also super interesting, and there were some plot twists, and I really liked all of the different types of fantasy creatures, and there was like witches, and it was just really cool. I did not have high hopes for this one, honestly, but it ended up being super addicting. So the next book also has a very strong traveling aspect, and that is A Promise of Fire by Amanda Bochette. So this is a fantasy romance where the main character is a clairvoyant, so she can tell when anybody is lying. And obviously that is a very useful and widely sought out skill. She has been hiding out in a traveling circus, but she ends up running into this warlord who realizes what her power is, and he kidnaps her so that he can take her back to his kingdom and use her for his benefit. The really fun part of this book is that the way that he kidnaps her is he uses this magical rope and binds the two of them together, and the rope is unbreakable. So they're now tied together with this magical rope and have to journey across the kingdom, and like they have to sleep together and bathe together, and like everything they do has to be together. So it also kind of has that forced proximity trope since they're literally magically binded together. So the next book is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair, and this is a Hades and Persephone romance that I really enjoyed. So basically in this version of Hades and Persephone, Hades owns a nightclub, and in this club people can come to him and make bargains. Persephone goes to that club one night and she meets Hades but doesn't realize that he is in fact Hades, and they make a bargain, and it turns out that she is now in a contract with the god of death that she can't get out of. And the terms of that bargain is that Persephone must create life in the underworld or she will lose her freedom forever. So she now moves to the underworld and has to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to create life. And the rest of it plays out like a very typical Hades and Persephone romance, but I had so much fun with this. I have read a lot of Hades and Persephone romances, and a lot of them just don't hit the mark for me. I think that I've always said my favorite Hades and Persephone retelling is the Lore Olympus webcomic series, and of any book that I've read, this one reminded me the most of that webcomic. I will say though that the writing of this one wasn't necessarily the strongest, but it was still really fun and enjoyable. The next one is His Beauty by Jack Harbin, which is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it's very much a straightforward Beauty and the Beast retelling. Like if you want Beauty and the Beast with spice, that's what this is. It's served. The major difference between this and actual Beauty and the Beast is that the beast stays a beast forever. And again, just like the Hades and Persephone's, I've read a lot of Beauty and the Beast retellings and haven't super enjoyed any of them, but this one gave me everything that I wanted. It was very true, I think, to Beauty and the Beast while also making it much more adult, and it was so good. I do want to take a moment to talk about the sponsor for today's video, which is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. They have a wide range of classes from topics such as illustration, graphic design, photography, lifestyle, productivity. It's curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. And it is less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. A really great class if you're looking into starting your own YouTube channel is this class called YouTube Success, which takes you through the entire process of planning a video, shooting content, editing, and then growing your channel. And the first 1,000 people who click the link in my description will get a free trial to the premium membership so you can explore your creativity. And thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. So those were my spicy fantasy romance recommendations. I hope you guys were able to find something in this video to read. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!